Hey, Eliyahu. I hope you guys are doing well. Please send my greetings to the family. Looking forward to seeing you guys. I'm working on trying to get plane tickets and stuff for October for Sukkot. But it's been interesting just trying to schedule with the days around Yom Kippur and stuff leading up to Sukkot and Shabbat in there and everything. But I wanted to try to answer the best I could the question. I just thought it would be nice to be a little more personal. Welcome to the Eastern Oregon High Desert in Harney County. And this is my yard. If you guys ever come and visit, we got hot springs, we got hiking, we got fire pit, got barbecue. Anyway, I'm blessed. Baruch Hashem. This is a tough one for a lot of people to get their brain around, because I truly believe that they haven't quite unlocked their brain from false teaching, and it's just kind of a long-term history of misunderstanding and misinterpretation of the scriptures. We're talking about the Temple Mount. The third temple. And you also brought in, which I think is so critical and important right now, this whole topic of the rapture teaching, which I need to say right straight up, I don't believe in. And there's a whole lot of us that don't. I've found an interesting trend, not everybody on here knows me, but I am Torah observant. By the way, almost Shabbat Shalom. It's going to be Shabbat by the time I post this over there in Israel, so you won't see this until Yom Rishon. But it is still afternoon here, quite high in the sky. So, anyway, my pre-Shabbat recording. Among the Torah observant Messianic movement, whatever you call that, I hate all the labels that people put, because it's really tough for us even in the movement to try to figure out, I don't like the labels. I just consider myself a Bible believer. But we are Torah observant because we read the scriptures, and the scriptures told us that these commandments apply. Those, even in the Revelation, talks about those who hold to the testimony, the commandments of God and the testimony of Yeshua. And I wonder if he's talking to both groups of people, even separately. Like, you hold the testimony of God, I hold testimony of Yeshua, or commandments of God, testimony of Yeshua. Maybe both groups are saved in their own way, but that's what I think the inclination of your heart as a Christian is so important. And when it comes to this topic of the third temple, and the rapture teaching, I've found that among that movement, because of our in-depth study of Scripture and the way that we do Torah studies and the way that we study the Haftarah and the New Testament, we have got like a new pair of glasses put on us, where we can see everything much more clearly without the historical error that we've found exists. And so there's a lot of the Messianic movement that does not believe in this rapture. And there's a lot of Christians who I wouldn't consider Torah observant or Messianic. Also, I think of Joel Richardson and some others, Dr. Michael Brown and what's his name? Greg Keen. He did a book called Not Afraid of the Antichrist, and I am the same. I am not afraid of any Antichrist. So how does this get to the whole thing about the third temple? And I dispense, pardon the pun, with the entire topic of the teaching of the rapture. It's founded in really straight up anti-Judaism, anti-Semitism, replacement theology. Dispensationalism itself is fundamentally based in a replacement theology. And anti-Torah, really, it comes down to that, like, we're saved by the blood, so the Jews have to go through a special test, kind of a thing. And they totally throw out and twist and cut and paste and flip around the time sequence of the eschatological prophetic writings on the end of days and the Revelation. And it's a longer story than that, but it goes with John Nelson Darby, and there's a whole lot to it. And people, I have found that the angrier you can make Christians about certain topics, it seems like there's a stronghold there. When I'm talking about certain topics, I mean ones that are scripturally based. They kind of want to argue. They get really angry because they're threatened, and because it's something that they believe they've been taught by their teachers, their pastors, as is a fundamental truth, when it's actually complete scriptural error. And it's easy to demonstrate and take apart. I could spend hours showing you, and I could do it very simply in 5 minutes too, but the thing about here, I actually wrote down some notes because I was listening, Eliyahu, to your video, and I wrote down some stuff so I wouldn't forget. You mentioned that why is it that everyone cares? That's the other video maybe that you did the day before or the after. Why is it that everyone cares about what Israel does and what Judaism does? Nobody, cares about what Christians do or Muslims do. And I would somewhat disagree with that. I think the world hates the Christians just as much almost as it hates the Jews, or maybe as much, or I don't know. We're just in this together because look at the levels of Christian persecution that's going on and the kinds of things that are condoned to say that the world is constantly trying to tell us Christians like how we should behave. And that's, I think, how we even really got infected by wokeism, leftism, kind of this radical social justice Christianity, heavily influenced by trying to be liked by the world. And Yeshua told us that they won't like us. The world is going to hate us, and they don't hate us. It's because they hate him and they hate the one who sent him. And so I tie it just really clearly to that it's really all about the world that hates God. They hate the Bible, they hate the Jews, they hate the Christians. Interestingly, people also want to try to tell Muslims how they should do their religion, but I have to say that has to be more because the way their religion is operating right now is really just pretty dangerous to the world, and people are like, hey, you either got to quit or change, because, world's getting fed up with, I think God's getting fed up with it. I'm thinking Hashem is getting fed up with it. But I wrote some more notes. I'm going to look at what I wrote here. Christians who also serve God and believe the Bible, we serve God too, seem more likely to support Israel. But even many of them will balk at the third temple due to the connection to the end times false Messiah, or as some would call the Antichrist, I guess, the Antichrist temple, they say. But because of this false rapture teaching, this dispensationalism, and this anti-Judaism, they're confused and fearful because the rapture teaching implies that Jews have to go through some kind of special test. As if they haven't already, is what I'm saying. You're like, hello, I think we're in the test, right? Personally, I think the Great Tribulation is now. I think it started on October 7th. And I think it talks about Judah and Jacob and that we say, how long, O Lord, how will you, until you relent, because Jacob is so small. I could go on about that, but I think it's actually started already. I think it maybe even started in 2020 with the other thing that happened that year. Anyway, but this rapture teaching, implies that somehow these Christians, no matter how disrespectful of God's law or the Torah or his commandments or his people, just because they pled the blood of Messiah, Yeshua, that they've already passed the test and that Israel has to go through it. But ironically, at the same time, they put forth this idea that the tribulation will be so terrible that they have to be raptured for it. They can't be here, which is, like, to me, just inherently anti-Semitic on top of being scripturally completely incorrect. Another big point that I make, that the Tanakh and the New Testament and the Revelation are really clear that all of this will come to pass, that you are going to face these difficulties, that the third temple will be built. There's some discussion right now about whether actually the sacrifices have to take place in the temple or on an altar up on the mount. And that's an interesting discussion that I think you're familiar with. And I kind of say to people, like, look, I'm here to support God's plan. So these so-called Christians like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and so forth that are trying to argue with God about, are you the real Israel or is this the real? I mean, it's here. Like, are you saying Christ is king or not? You know, or like, are you saying God is the king of and sovereign over the matters of history and the flow of nations and civilizations, and he holds the hearts of all kings in his hands, and he brings up empire, nations, and brings them down at his will? Then if so, then Israel's here. It's a reality. And he never said that they were going to be perfect people. He said it was for his name's sake that all of this is done. So regardless, I know I'm just as broken and flawed, and I need grace, and God's already given a covenant to his people, and he's made promises. And I really think that the Messiah is going to be so incredibly clear. He's going to be so incredibly merciful to really make it clear who is Messiah, Mashiach, that, the world is going to be overcome with just how merciful he is, really. And that only the hardest of hearts would turn away. But this thing about the temple, and that there has to be this false person who comes up and puts up an idol. I mean, there's already people who could qualify to be, ready to do that right now. And even the pieces the players are putting onto the chessboard, pieces are being moved into place to actually make this seem very logical. And I think it's hard for a lot of Christians to understand that when you see the prophetic events happening, it's not a movie. Like, you're actually watching it in 3D and it's real time. And so it's hard for you to connect that it might actually be really happening. And so I think anybody who's arguing against the existence of Israel or saying that, you can't build this third temple because that's the Antichrist temple, it's like, God already said it's going to happen. So, like, this person has to be exposed, and God has to be able to show his mighty hand and protect his people, and to be made known to be a truth teller from the beginning. And so I guess, that's why I support the temple, because it says it's going to happen, and Jerusalem is the place, but it also says that the enemy's still going to try to fight, and things are still going to happen, and that there's going to be this betrayal, where somebody allows the temple, or at least allows, like, sacrifice to begin again, but then reneges and places themselves kind of at the center, like, to be worshipped. And that is something really to be warned about and watch for. But my God from the Bible is bigger than all of that, so I ain't afraid of no rapture. I ain't afraid of no third temple. I ain't afraid of no Antichrist, right? Because the God of angel armies is on our side. And that he says these things are going to happen, and we're just, when we see these things, we're to look up because the Geulah is drawing close. The redemption draws nigh, as it says in the King James Version. So, yeah, there you go. I don't know, 14 minutes? My gosh, that's crazy. All right. That's a lot. I hope it wasn't overwhelming. I hope I can post it. Okay. Shalom, y'all. Shabbat shalom. 1.5 more moons to Sukkot.